Number 1. The murder of Peggy Klinka. According to the National Center for Victims of Crime, in 1998, 28-year-old Peggy was preparing for medical school in New Mexico. She started dating Patrick Kennedy. Patrick seemed charming at first, but his behavior quickly grew overbearing and controlling. After 3 years of escalating possessiveness, Peggy finally cut all ties with him in 2002. She thought she was ending a bad relationship. She was wrong. From the exact day she left him, Patrick's obsession transformed into a relentless campaign of terror. He stalked her everywhere, waiting outside her gym and calling her incessantly. When Peggy ignored him, his rage turned public. Patrick plastered Albuquerque with vulgar flyers featuring Peggy's face and her private phone number, ensuring they were taped up wherever she regularly went. The harassment rapidly escalated. When Peggy started dating a new man, Patrick flew to Ohio just to spray paint horrible slurs on her mother's garage. According to police reports, he returned to New Mexico and set fire to her new boyfriend's house. Terrified for her life, Peggy went to the police. She filed stalking charges and obtained a restraining order. But Patrick remained free, and Peggy realized she was unprotected. Desperate to survive, Peggy completely uprooted her life. She abandoned her plans, changed her phone number, and secretly moved across the country to Turlock, California. She secured a confidential address and lived entirely off the grid, leaving no trail for Patrick to follow. For months, she thought she was finally safe from the nightmare. But Patrick Kennedy was a man consumed by a terrifying lethal obsession. As detailed in California legislative files, Patrick hired a private investigator to track her down. Posing as a PI himself, he showed a delivery driver Peggy's photo and got her exact address. In January 2003, Patrick ambushed her. He beat her savagely with a firearm and bound her hands with duct tape. Despite the assault, Peggy miraculously broke free, sprinting to a neighbor's apartment to call 911. But Patrick smashed through a glass door and cornered Peggy in a bedroom. With police outside, Patrick held her to the floor at gunpoint. Knowing she wouldn't survive, Peggy yelled out a final message, asking that her sister's baby be named after her. Moments later, Patrick shot Peggy before killing himself. According to congressional records, her tragic death eventually led to the creation of National Stalking Awareness Month. Number 2. The Redmond Nightmare. Sometimes, a stalker isn't an ex-partner. In March 2023, 33-year-old Zore Sadeghi and her husband Milad Nasseri were living a peaceful life in Redmond, Washington. Zore was active on a social audio app called Clubhouse, joining chat rooms for Farsi speakers in the tech industry. There, she met a long-haul truck driver from Texas. They had a brief conversation, but for him, it sparked an unrelenting obsession. The man began a campaign of severe digital and physical harassment. He bombarded Zora with up to 100 phone calls in a single day. When she blocked him, the harassment escalated. He sent unwanted gifts to her home and eventually started showing up in person. Terrified, Zora contacted the Redmond police multiple times in the winter of 2022. Investigators agreed she was in extreme danger and helped her obtain a formal order of protection. But the legal system had a fatal flaw. Because the stalker was a transient truck driver, police could not pin down his exact location. Legally, a restraining order must be physically served to the suspect before it can be fully enforced. The police simply couldn't find him to hand him the paperwork. Zora was left completely exposed, trapped in her own home, waiting for a piece of paper to protect her from a man who was rapidly losing control. The nightmare reached its breaking point on March 10, 2023. At 1:45 in the morning, the stalker arrived at the couple's home. He violently smashed through a bedroom window and broke inside. Milad rushed to protect his wife, but the stalker shot him in the chest. Zora's mother, who was visiting from overseas, was shoved aside. She miraculously escaped into the night and ran to a neighbor's house to dial 911, but the police were too late. The stalker cornered Zora in the master bedroom and shot her before turning the gun on himself. When authorities arrived, all three were dead. the Redmond police chief addressed the media, calling the tragedy the absolute worst outcome for a stalking case and every detective's worst nightmare. Zore did everything right. She documented the abuse and went to the police, but the system completely failed to save her. Number 3. The murder of Shauna Grice. In 2016, 19-year-old Shauna Grice was living in Brighton, England. She had briefly dated a 27-year-old mechanic named Michael Lane. When Shauna ended the relationship, Lane refused to accept it. His rejection quickly twisted into a dark, obsessive stalking campaign that would eventually expose one of the most shocking police failures in modern history. Over the next 6 months, Lane stalked Shauna relentlessly. He secretly placed a tracking device on her car so he always knew her exact location. He loitered outside her house, bombarded her with calls, and sent her unhinged letters. Terrified, Shauna reported him to the Sussex police multiple times. But instead of protecting a frightened teenager, the authorities treated her like a nuisance. In July 2016, the stalking escalated to a terrifying new level. Lane stole a backdoor key and silently crept into Shauna's home while she was sleeping. She woke up to find him standing over her bed in the dead of night. She immediately grabbed her phone, fled the house, and called the police. But when officers arrived, the nightmare took a deeply disturbing turn. Because Shauna initially withheld the fact that she and Lane had previously dated out of fear of judgment, the officers accused her of lying. Unbelievably, the Sussex police issued Shauna a £90 fine for wasting police time. They officially penalized a terrified teenager for reporting her stalker. Emboldened by the police essentially taking his side, Michael Lane realized he was completely untouchable. Just 1 month after Shauna was fined, Lane struck for the final time. On August 25th, he broke into her home after her roommate left for work. He confronted Shauna in her bedroom and brutally slashed her throat. To destroy the evidence, he covered her body in petrol and set her room on fire before calmly walking away. When firefighters extinguished the blaze, they discovered Shauna's body. The exact same police force that had fined her for asking for help was now investigating her savage murder. Michael Lane was eventually caught and sentenced to life in prison. But the true horror of this case is that Shauna's death was entirely preventable. Her stalker didn't just kill her. The system handed her to him. Number 4. The Okagawa stalker murder. In 1999, 21-year-old university student Shiori Ino was living in Saitama, Japan. She began dating a man named Kazuhito Komatsu, who lied about his age and his deeply abusive nature. When Shiori tried to end the relationship, Komatsu flat out refused. He told her that if she left him, he would completely destroy her family. What followed was a campaign of psychological torture that exposed an unfathomably corrupt police force. Komatsu unleashed a massive coordinated stalking operation. He plastered Shiori's entire neighborhood with posters spreading horrific lies about her. He bombarded her house with silent phone calls and sent defamatory letters to her father's workplace, trying to get him fired. Terrified, Shiori and her parents took a mountain of evidence, including audio recordings and threatening letters, directly to the local Saitama police. They begged for protection, but the police response was sickening. Instead of helping, the officers mocked Shiori. According to official inquiries, they blamed her for the harassment, suggesting she was a bad person for rejecting him. Because investigating a stalker required tedious paperwork that didn't boost their arrest statistics, the detectives secretly altered Shiori's official criminal complaint. They downgraded it to a minor dispute, ensuring that absolutely no action would be taken against Komatsu. Knowing the police had completely abandoned her, Shiori told her friends, "If I am murdered, it was Komatsu." She was right. In October 1999, Komatsu paid his brother and a group of hitmen to execute her. In broad daylight, right outside the busy Okagawa train station, the hitmen ambushed Shiori and brutally stabbed her to death. She bled out on the pavement while hundreds of commuters watched in horror. But the nightmare for her grieving family was only just beginning. Realizing their horrific negligence had just resulted in a young woman's murder, the Saitama police panicked. To cover up their failure, they intentionally launched a smear campaign against a dead girl. The police anonymously fed lies to the Japanese tabloids, falsely painting Shiori as a greedy, brand-obsessed escort who had provoked her killer. They desperately tried to assassinate her character so the public would think she deserved her brutal fate. The truth was only exposed because an independent journalist named Kiyoshi Shimizu refused to believe the police narrative. He investigated the case himself, tracked down the hitmen before the police did, and exposed the massive police cover-up. Following public outrage, several police officials were fired and convicted of document forgery. Shiori's tragic death ultimately forced Japan to pass its very first national anti-stalking legislation. Number 5. The murder of Amy Boyer. In 1999, 20-year-old Amy was a bright, beloved young woman living in New Hampshire, but her life was cut short by a man named Liam Ewens. The most terrifying part? Amy didn't even know who he was. This wasn't a bitter ex-boyfriend. This was a phantom who orchestrated one of the earliest and most disturbing cases of cyber-stalking in history. Ewens developed an intense, completely one-sided obsession with Amy in middle school. Despite never having a real conversation with her, he spent years silently fixating on her every move. When the early internet emerged, Ewens weaponized it. He created a public website named directly after her, building a digital shrine dedicated entirely to his violent, obsessive fantasies. On this horrific website, Ewens posted Amy's personal information, her photos, and her daily routines. But it went much further than that. He explicitly typed out his step-by-step plans to murder her. It was a public confession of a future execution, sitting right out in the open on the World Wide Web. Yet tragically, nobody found or reported the site until it was too late. To finalize his lethal plan, Ewens needed to know where Amy worked. According to federal court records, he paid a shady online data broker a mere $154. In exchange, the private investigative firm used illegal deception to acquire Amy's exact employment address. For less than $200, they handed her location directly to her killer. Armed with her exact schedule, Ewens drove to the dental clinic where Amy worked on October 15, 1999. He waited patiently in the parking lot. When Amy finished her shift and got into her car, Ewens pulled his vehicle directly alongside hers, completely blocking her door so she couldn't escape. Before Amy could even realize what was happening, Ewens raised a firearm and shot her multiple times through the window, killing her instantly. He then turned the weapon on himself. A completely innocent young woman's life was extinguished by a man who bought her location on the internet for the price of a cheap dinner. Amy's horrific murder led to a massive legal reckoning. Her parents sued the data brokers, resulting in landmark rulings that permanently changed how private information is sold online. The Amy Boyer case remains the ultimate terrifying proof that sometimes the most dangerous stalker is the one you never even see coming. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, remember to stay safe and vigilant. Have a good night.
Everything leads to nothing. And every time I see you, I need you to stay. And everything leads to nothing. And every time I see you, I need you to stay.